Hey, I'm Hunter from SkillThrive, and welcome to the final lesson in this 4-part course where you'll design and code a video channel landing page. In this lesson, we'll implement Venobox, a responsive jQuery Lightbox plugin for videos, and get the project live on the web with Netlify Drop. You'll also find all the lessons linked in the course in the description below. Feel free to follow along and write the code as we go, but you can also download the final code and design on skillthrive.com for a small price. This helps me as a creator to continue making design and development courses for you to watch at no cost. With that out of the way, let's get started. So before you get started, make sure you have all your videos on YouTube, because the plugin that we're going to be using is going to be using YouTube. And the reason I'm using YouTube is that it's free to upload videos. So you can see here that I have all of those videos uploaded, and I'm going to be referencing the unique ID URL in here. So let's say, for instance, if I open this section right here after the video equals, I'm going to be referencing that throughout the rest of the HTML. So once we click on that button, it knows which YouTube video to reference. So make sure that your videos are up on YouTube before moving on. The next thing we want to do is come into Venobox and then click here to download this. And this is the jQuery plugin that we're going to be using. It's also important to note that they're going to ask you to tweet something out that you downloaded it in order to access the files. But if you want to not tweet about it, just tweet about it and then just remove the tweet as soon as you do it. But then once you do that, you'll have access to download the plugin. So you can see here in the demo, let's look at the actual video. So once we click on Vimeo, here's an example of Vimeo, and then it autoplays, which is really cool. And then you also get this really cool out of the box gallery feature that you can use as well. And then when you click on that, it'll just go move into the next video in your HTML. And here's an example of YouTube auto playing. So cool. So once you do that, you can go ahead and just exit out of this little modal, and we can actually start getting this ready for our site. So the first thing we need to do is include the CSS in our head. So we need to come up to this download, and let's go ahead and just expand this. And then I'm going to come into where my project is, so desktop. And I'm just going to create a new folder. So let's do, just call it Venobox. And then we can come into the Venobox, and I'm just going to copy this CSS and then paste it in here. And we also need to bring in the minified JS version. So we'll come in here and then paste that as well. So once we do that, we can actually import this. So let's come and just copy this link. We'll paste this below our styles, and then we need to tell it where it actually is, which is in Venobox and then Venobox CSS. So now that that's imported, the next thing we need to do is include the minified version after we pull in the jQuery library. Now, there's several different ways you can pull in jQuery, and a lot of people use CDNs, but I'm just actually going to download jQuery, the latest minified version, and just include it here in our project. And to download jQuery, you literally just come up and just Google jQuery download. And here, jQuery.com is where you want to go. And then you can click here on download the compressed production jQuery. I'm going to right click and then say save link as. And then I'm going to just save this where my project is. So let's come into video channel, create a new folder here, and just call this jQuery. And I want to make sure that I get rid of this right here and then save that. All right, so now if we come in, we can actually see, I'm going to rename this, actually, bad habit, I put the underscore. All right, so now we can see the minified version. So we need to make sure that we're pulling that in as well into our HTML. And to do that, I'm just going to go back to the Venobox, and I'm just going to copy these two scripts because we got to pull these in. And right before the body tag is where we want to paste these in. So I'll paste that in. And the source here is not going to be what's here. It's actually going to be at the jQuery and then the jQuery minified. And then here is wherever you put your Venobox. Now mine's in the folder called Venobox, and then the name of that file is the minified Venobox JS script. All right, so now that you did that, the next thing you need to do is to initialize the plugin. And to do that, all you have to do is create a new script tag. And in between the script tag, you want to just copy this code right here and then paste it in. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of format this so it's laid out nicely. All right, so now your plugin is going to be initialized. And now what we need to do is actually use the plugin. So you can see here, it says insert one or more links with their custom class. So the class here that we're going to be using is Venobox. And that Venobox is going to be referenced right down here once we initialize the plugin. And you can see here, there's going to be an example if you scroll down to actually the video. So here, use data autoplay equals to true in order for that video to autoplay. And that's what we want to do. So what we're going to do is just copy this A tag here. And then I'm going to surround it up here with the watch button. So let's come up to the watch button and I'm going to paste that in. And then make sure that that's closed and we give that a full quote. And then we're going to surround this with a closing A tag. And the class is going to be Venobox, data play true, data, the type is going to be a video, and then the href is going to be where our YouTube video is hosted. So on this one, this is video 17. So let's come and find video 17, wherever it is. See, here it is. So I'm going to come up and open this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into share and then just copy this little code right here, this URL, and then paste that in to the href. So let's see here and that's right here. So let's paste that in. And then once we save that, let's go back to our project. And now once we click on that, you can see that video loads in and starts autoplaying. Cool, so let's go ahead and just exit out of this. And the next thing I want to do before I start actually working on the rest of the videos is just passing in some custom values here. Now, if we come into the Venobox, you'll see if we come, let's see, right here, there's some different options that we can do. So for instance, we can change the arrow color, we can change the background color, the closed background, the closed color, so on and so forth. And the ones that I'm going to specifically do are just a couple here. And in order to pass these values in, we need to come into the spot where we initialize the plugin. And right here where it calls this method Venobox, we can create curly braces and pass in some object values. So the first one is going to be closed color, which is coming right from the documentation. And the closed color is going to be set to just that F4. So we're going to do the hashtag and then F4 all the way across. And that's going to change that close button to the color of the light text in our actual project. And this is going to have a consistent styling. So once we do that, we do a comma, and then we'll do spin color. And spin color is going to be the same value here. So that's going to be just F4. And then next we want to do the close background. And then that's going to be the value of that dark. So let's come back into Figma and we can copy this right here. And then paste that right here. So let's paste that in. And we need to make sure we surround that with quotes. And the next thing we want to do is change the overlay color. And the overlay color is going to be the RGBA value. So let's do RGBA. And then it was 23, 25, 29, and then 0.8. Now, if you forgot what yours were, you can always go back into the style here and just copy this overlay value. All right, and that's everything for the custom things that we want to set with this plugin. So now once we come into this and click this, it's going to not work. And I think they're probably just because there's a typo here. So let's take a look at this just for a second. I need to surround this with a quote. All right, now once we click this, it'll work again. And now you can see that the overlay matches the one that is on this video, and that this play button now is going to be, or not this play button, but this X button is going to be the same color as our text. All right, so now what we need to do is just go through and apply this to the rest of these. So once we click on these, they actually play the video. And to do that, it's actually very similar to what we did here for the watch button. So we'll come up here and just copy this A tag. So we'll come here and copy that. And what we want to do is surround the I value, or the I tag. So I'm going to paste that in. And you can see that it automatically creates a closing tag here. So I'm just going to delete that and then move that closing tag right here. And then what we want to do is change the ending of this to match the ending of the URL for our YouTube video. So this is image 1, video 1. So I'm going to come in and find video 1. Click here. I'm going to open this up into a new tab. And then what you can do is just copy this part right after the equal sign. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste it in right here. And now once I save that and click on this, it's going to open that up. And I'm just going to repeat this process over and over for the rest of the videos. So I'm just going to speed through that so you guys can still see the process but not have to watch it in real time. And another thing I want to point out is, remember that when I added that A tag here right before this I tag, it was adding the closing tag. So in order to not have to do that every time, I'm just going to copy this entire A tag and I tag here and just replace it. So I'm just going to paste that in and then just change the YouTube value here. All right, so now that we finished that, let's go ahead and save it and just go ahead and just check some of these videos. So let's go ahead and click on this one and make sure that all of this stuff is playing. Cool, so you can see that is working, and you can see it's kind of annoying, right? Let's say, for instance, we wanted to go to the next video. We would have to click out and then go to like this one and so on and so forth. But there's a really cool way to add a gallery feature here with this plugin. And if we come back to the documentation and come down to gallery, you can see that in order to activate this gallery function, we have this variable we can pass in called data-gal, and then we can give that gallery a name here. And this one is just using my gallery. So let's go ahead and just copy this. And we can come back into where we pasted all those A tags. So let's come up to this one here. And at the end of this, I'm just going to paste in that value. And I'm going to do that for the rest of them as well. And once we finish that, we can go ahead and save this. We'll come back into our project and let's go ahead and just click on Watch Now. And now you can see this really cool play button or this next button that when we click it, it'll load video 1 and just keep going down the line based off of the order of what those A tags are in our HTML. So you can see how this plugin makes this gallery feature really, really simple. And the next thing I want to change before we wrap up this entire course is just the arrow colors. And we want that to match the F4. So let's come up to the documentation again and see where the arrow color is. So let's go ahead and just copy this. I'm going to come down here and go ahead and set that to the same value of these up here. Make sure we have that comma. We can save that. And then once we come back here, the arrows now are going to match our design. And there you go. You can see with this plugin, you get a lot of functionality out of the box. And it's also really easy to just pass in some different data attributes and really get some cool functionality. And you can also, change things like the color of the different elements that come with the plugin. Now, the last thing we want to do is get this live on the web. And to do that, we're going to be using Netlify Drop. So let's head to Netlify Drop. And to do that, I'm just going to search for Netlify Drop and then app.netlify.com/drop. And once this loads, we can come into our project here. And in the desktop, I'm just going to copy or select this video channel folder and then just drag this into Netlify Drop. And then it's going to build the site for us here in just a couple seconds. And then we can open this up And now we have a live URL of our project. So let's just go ahead and make sure all the styling works. So that looks good. And then let's go ahead and make sure that the plugin works. So let's click on Watch Now. All right, so that works. And our gallery looks like it works as well. And the close button works. And now once this is live, you can come back into Netlify and set up a custom domain. And you also have HTTPS, which is a secured way of delivering a website out of the box for free. So there's no setup that you need to do with Netlify. And that's it. Congrats on finishing the course. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider subscribing, liking this video, and sharing it with your friends. And consider joining skillthrive.com because we have a lot more premium and free content for you to watch and download. Again, I'm Hunter from Skillthrive, and I'll see you in the next course.